are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm so glad that you're here with us today on a very special day. We got a big treat for you. Our guest today is going to be Mary Jane White. She is an author, a former lawyer, and a mom extraordinaire. We're going to talk about her journey, her books that you guys should know about. I'm holding in my hand Dragonfly Toad Moon, which is a book of poetry that is about her son's journey, her journey with her son after he was diagnosed on the spectrum. But she has a new book that's out that's called What It Took to Raise My Son with Autism to Be His Own Person, Loose in the Universe. We're going to talk with her about both books, but about the new book in particular, and a way for you to be able to get her new book for free, which is a pretty incredible thing. It's funny because so often we will reference stories and we don't always get the opportunity to reference who the story is or where it came from, but we sometimes talk about, Dr. Grampiche and I talk about this DVD that's called Recovered: Journeys Through the Autism Spectrum and Back. It is a DVD that was put out many years ago. I don't even know what year this came out, but many years ago. And it is the story of 4 kids, and it shows video of them when they were younger, before they started treatment, and then while they were in treatment, and then you get to see them as teenagers. They're like they're like 16, 17, 18 years old teenagers. All of those individuals now are in their 30s. It is the most amazing thing to have the opportunity to talk to them. And even just watching the DVD, you know, you get and by the way, they also interview the moms of these kids, and you see people doing ABA therapy with them. Notably, you see Evelyn Kung, and you see Vince Redmond, a very young Vince Redmond doing therapy, and it just cracks me up every time I see it. But it's a pretty amazing video that shows you sort of the progression of how these things happened. And one of the 4 children is Ruffin White, and his mother, Mary Jane White, who's going to be joining us in just a little while, is featured in the DVD. So that's a very cool thing. I have to say that always, you know, I talk about this journey and the amazing people you meet in this journey, and I'm so glad to introduce Mary Jane to you today because she's one of those amazing people you meet on this journey. And she's got a story to tell, and she's a wordsmith, a beautiful, beautiful writer who tells the story in a very accessible and fresh way. So she's going to be joining us in just about 15 minutes. But before that, we have lots of things to take care of. We're live right now. We're premiering this show to you. We did pre-record this, but we're premiering it to you live on YouTube and Facebook, and our fabulous Chris Desmond is showing you all the other places that it is available. Don't forget that it will be available probably later on today as a podcast. Wherever you get your podcasts, it'll be a free download. Don't forget that it will be free to you, but that it will likely come with some advertising on it, because that is how we make it free for you. If you don't, I hope you embrace the advertisers. I hope that you do that. If you don't want to embrace the advertisers, and some of you have said that you have other things that you're doing and you'd rather pay a little bit in order to get the podcast, because it does cost us for the download. We get charged for that. I don't know if you guys knew that. But anyway, if you'd like to get it without ads, you can pay a small amount, $5 a month, to glow.fm/autismlive. And when you do, that $5 a month gets you absolutely everything that we do at the Autism Network. That's Autism Live, Parent to Parent. It's Ask Dr. Doreen, and everything else that we do, including Stories from the Spectrum and our newest podcast, which is Today's Hyperfixation. So you get them all free of ads for $5 a month. It's a cool thing. So I hope you will check that out. You know that we love it when you like, when you share, when you comment, especially when you review, that helps us to be able to stay on the air and helps us to get our message, which is always hope and information and inspiration, that we're trying to get that out to the world. I think you're going to find that today's show is particularly filled with hope and information and inspiration, because that's just how Mary Jane rolls. But I had to pick a jargon of the day. I know we did this one fairly recently, but I felt that it was really important that we talk about this today as we begin to talk about Mary Jane's story with her son, Ruffin. So our jargon term for today is EIBI. And you know, the purpose of doing the jargon of the day is to help you to understand what these terms mean, but not just in the textbook kind of way, in an experiential way of why this might be important to you. Why is it something? Why does this jargon even exist? Why is it important enough to make it be jargon? So let's take a look at what our actual definition from the National Institutes of Health.gov, NIH.gov, says about EIBI. Early Intensive Behavioral Intervention, EIBI, is a treatment based on the principles of applied behavior analysis delivered for multiple years at an intensity of 20 to 40 hours per week. It is one of the more well-established treatments for ASD. Okay, that's from the National Institute of Health. A couple of things I want you to notice about that. We use the word intensity. What does intensity mean? Right? And I do a talk sometimes when I go, it's not a popular talk, I will say that, when I'm talking to BCBAs, and one of my slides says on it, who voted intensity off of the island? Because I get a little uppity about it. Because the studies are clear. Like, if you're going to talk to me about science, and you're going to tell me you're a scientist, then I want to talk about the science. And the studies are clear. Now, I feel that the studies more lean towards the 30 to 40 hours, but I don't know. The NIH has decided to say 20 to 40. NIH, this is Shannon calling. I would like to know what studies showed 20. Show me those. I'd like to know. I'm curious because I don't know about them. Anyway, and it makes me mad. I'm a little bit mad at that. But, you know, I think intensive is the key. We know science has shown that when you are able to do something repeatedly over and over, you learn it and it becomes your skill. That's true of anything, and that's certainly true of when we're teaching individuals on the spectrum. So don't cheat us on the intensity. Who voted it off the island? Okay, let's go on to our next definition, see what we have here, and this comes from raisingchildren.net.au from Australia. This therapy promotes learning, skill development, and behavior change by breaking tasks into small steps that are easier to learn. As children learn each step, they're praised and rewarded. Challenging behavior is ignored when it happens. So I think that's a really interesting definition about early intensive behavioral intervention. Of course, they're assuming that we understand that intensive means intensive, but I do find that we need to quantify. What does intensive mean to you? What does it mean to me? To me, I understood very early on, what I was told was 25 to 40 hours, but the majority of the studies were more towards 40 hours a week. That's what intensity was. But the truth of the matter is that intensity depends on the individual, on where they are, what their skills are, and what they need. I just caution parents all the time, if you're starting out and you've just gotten the diagnosis and you're going to get a prescription for really good quality ABA, and I hope that you are pushing for the most intensity you can possibly get at that point. And don't let somebody talk you into something that's less than intense, because that is what has been shown to be effective. And if you doubt that, we're going to have a conversation with somebody who has been able to work really hard to make that happen for her child, but now has all the benefits of that. I got to say, I count myself in that category, that I took it really seriously. And, in fact, and I'm going to say this later on in the show, but having watched this DVD, Mary Jane White was one of the people that inspired me to be able to say, okay, I want to be like these people, I want to have the outcome that they have, and they did intensity. So it inspired me to do intensity, and we did, and I get to reap the benefits of that every day with my child. So of course I want that for you. But what is that for you? It does look different for everyone. But I was told 25 to 40 hours and to push. My son was 2.5 when he was diagnosed, and good people said to me, read the studies, get as close to 40 as you can possibly get. Obviously, it changes for different people at different times, but I find almost always when I'm talking to new parents, I wish they were getting more than what they're getting. I think the national average right now for ABA is like 10 hours a week. And let me tell you, that study exists, and it says that that is not effective at creating good outcomes. So there we go. All right, we've got this amazing guest that we're going to talk to. I guarantee you her story is going to send shivers up your spine and make you sit up and take note. We're going to be right back after, take a look at this, and we're going to be right back with Mary Jane White. Welcome back. As I mentioned before the break, we've got a very special treat for you today. We're going to spend some time and talk with a pretty extraordinary mom, Mary Jane White. She is the author of 2 books. I'm holding in my hand one of her books. This is a book of poetry. Hopefully we'll have an opportunity to read 1 or 2. Dragonfly, Toad, Moon. And of course, her new book that is out right now that we're going to talk about a lot. I love the title of it, What It Took to Raise My Son with Autism. The subtitle is To Be His Own Person, Loose in the Universe. I don't know about you, but that second part, whew, like gets me in all the feels, right? So who is Mary Jane and what is her story? We're going to be finding out about all of that, but I want you to know that she's an amazing poet and translator who practiced law. like that's like, I know, you'll get to know her and see that she's an extraordinary person. She was originally raised in North Carolina, earned degrees from both the North Carolina School of Arts, Reed College, the University of Iowa Writers Workshop, and studied law at Duke University, graduating from the University of Iowa. So this woman is not sitting in the corner doing nothing, right? But then you will see as we talk to her, her amazing journey when her child was diagnosed as being on the spectrum, and what led to her writing these amazing books. So let's welcome Mary Jane. I think this is the very first time you've ever been on the show.
Yes, and I'm delighted to be with you. I am a faithful watcher.
How have we gone 14 years and not had you on the show? I don't really understand that. But you've been busy, let's say that. And we talk about you often on the show and reference parts of your story because we will talk about the role that you played in the DVD Recovered, which you and your son are both featured in. So I guess I want to start with the books. I'm holding Dragonfly, Toad, Moon in my hand, and you are holding the new book, What It Took to Raise My Son with Autism to Be His Own Person, Loose in the Universe. Love that subtitle, Mary Jane. And talk to us about where can we get these, how can we get these, first of all, and then we'll talk about what they are. But where can you get them?
Both of these books are available on Amazon. And the poetry book is available from the Press 53, which is a small literary press in Winston-Salem. But it's also available on Amazon. This new book, the prose book, and it's a big fat book, this is what the poetry gets wrung out of, the story, the whole story. This book is available on Kindle Unlimited as a free download. It will cost you nothing. And then you can enlarge the font. The pictures will be in color, and it won't cost you anything.
Amazing.
Ruffin and I just made a gift of 112 copies of the new book to every card clinic across the United States. The list of clinics that appears on Dr. Doreen's card website. And in the, we put a special sticker on each one of these gift books. Reach for the stars and always keep dreaming. That was engraved on a beautiful silver star paperweight that Dr. Doreen sent to us during the time that the documentary that you mentioned was launched. And then we say, Mary Jane White and Dr. Ruffin White, my son, thank Dr. Doreen, Grandpa Shea, and senior therapist Evelyn Kung, who I'm sure your viewers are familiar with, of Card, with this memoir. It's downloadable to your phone, your computer, or your Kindle for free from Amazon's Kindle Unlimited. If you download it, you can enlarge the font. If your parents or grandparents of your child need to be able to read it, and if you click the read aloud in the play menu, you can have it read to you, which is the way that Ruffin reads a lot of his books.
What an amazing gift. First of all, your story is an amazing gift. I'm going to try not to cry this whole interview, Mary Jane. Your story is a gift. The fact that you've shared it with the world in many different ways is a gift. The gift of the books to the centers is a huge, lovely, heartwarming gift, and the gift to the universe that they can download the book for free on Kindle is ginormous. You're living your best life, Mary Jane, and paying it forward, which, you know, I want to be you when I grow up. I think a lot of people want to be you when they grow up. Having said all that, now you guys know what we're talking about and where you can get it. Let's back it up to the beginning. Around here, we call it the origin story. Tell us a little bit about who you were and what was happening, and then your child being diagnosed, so that we get a feel for what it was like.
Well, I was about 38 years old. I was a practicing lawyer. I was a trial lawyer. I don't sit in the office, you know, and do paperwork. I like to go out and tell stories, and I like to do justice. And I decided at 38, although I had some difficult fertility problems, that I would like to try to have a child. And so I was lucky enough to be able to do that. And about 39 months into his life, you know, I was worried. And I made some videotape of the behaviors that I was concerned about. That footage is in the recovered video. So even before I knew what it was, I knew it was weird. And I made a videotape. That videotape went to a pediatric neurologist who also examined Ruffin face-to-face and in a regular assessment. And he was diagnosed with PDD-NOS when he was 3 years and 3 months old. In 2 days, it will be the 30th anniversary from the time that we're recording this.
Wow.
In 2 days, it will be the 30th anniversary of his diagnosis. So he was diagnosed at 39 months. He was 3 years and 3 months old. He did do intensive early behavioral intervention, ABA, and that was able to end when he was 5 years and 7 months old. During his kindergarten year, when he was attending school as a full day with neurotypical children and still receiving a little ABA in the afternoon at the latchkey setting of his Catholic private kindergarten. Wow. And so when he was diagnosed, the pediatric neurologist who diagnosed him said, look, he may never speak. He may never finish school. He may never know that you care about him. He'll probably not marry. And what you need to do is set aside $5 million, if you have it, and put it out at interest so that you will have the income that he will need after you're gone. That was pretty scary.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so huge for somebody to say that level of crazy to you, because I don't know anybody who has $5 million laying around. And even though you were a lawyer, I don't think you had $5 million laying around. What was the reaction? Because I know some people who laugh in that moment and go, well, that's ridiculous. But I know other people who crumble. Like, what was it for you, Mary Jane?
Well, I drove straight to the library. I mean, I asked this neurologist, give me the name of a book I need to read.
Right.
I went to the public library and I started reading the book, and it looked really grim. It looked like the mother of all learning disabilities. And I spent a pretty sleepless night reading the book. I called the special education department in the morning to try to sign him up for special education and to get him seen. And just began a long series of reading, trying to find out what might work. And
I love that you felt that there was an answer and that you were going to find it through research. And I applaud that. I mean, I think a lot of us have been on that page, and there's a lot more information now. I love the fact that now, if a parent is looking for the answer and goes, I'm going to go to the library, they can get your book or they can get it on Amazon. But that didn't exist then. So,
no.
So
I wound up calling an autism specialist within the special education department. She told me about Bernard Rimland, Dr. Bernard Rimland at San Diego. Then I ordered all the Autism Research Review International issues that he had printed and began working my way through them. It didn't take me very long to discover, because it had just been published, the 1993 studies of the longitudinal studies of the Young Autism Project at UCLA. Yeah. And then, of course, I found Catherine Maurice's book, which was very helpful to me, Let Me Hear Your Voice, which had just been published. I ordered in, I think, the Teach volumes from North Carolina. I read all of those, and it looked like the only person who seemed to have had a really good outcome with young children with autism was Lois. Yeah. So I was trying to get into the clinic, and Tristram Smith, who worked on that paper, the 1993 paper, happened to be teaching at Drake University. Ooh. And he told me about Doreen, and I recognized her name from Catherine Maurice's book. Yes. And I called Bernie Rimland, and said, how do I find this woman? And he said, oh, she's in my Rolodex, and gave me a telephone number. Amazing. Wasn't that lucky?
Okay. When you think about all the dots, the fact that Tris Smith was at Drake, that was the piece that I didn't know. Because you were in Iowa, and Iowa still is not, I love Iowa. My family is from Iowa. I don't know if you know that. That's where
I did not know that.
Yeah, that's where my mom and dad were born and raised. I love Iowa, but Iowa isn't still not the center of autism treatment 30 years later. So for you to be sitting there and going, what can I possibly find? The fact that Tris Smith was at Drake University, which for people who don't know is in the center of Iowa, that's a pretty lucky turn. That's a lottery ticket right there.
Right. And I'm in the part of Iowa that's almost 5 hours from the center of Iowa, up in the Wisconsin-Minnesota borders. So I lived in a town, I still live in a town of 3,000 to 4,000 people. Gonna be that the people with autism at that time were pretty thin on the ground. There might have been 4 or 5 within 4 or 5 counties, because the incidence then was reported at 1 in 15,000 births. That's very different from 1 in 36 born today.
Yes.
Okay. So there were not any autism experts around. Yeah. And we had to think about, what were we going to do? But once I got a hold of Doreen, she said she was about 3 to 4 years into establishing CARD at that time. She agreed to fly Evelyn Kung out to Iowa. We would go pick her up in Minnesota at an airport and bring her. Doreen said, go ahead and hire your team, your home team. So these would be the equivalents of what we would call an RBT today.
Yeah.
Except that there was no licensing and there was no training. So Evelyn had the full responsibility of coming for 2 days and doing a complete assessment and training my team. Now, I hired my team. I hired 2 local mothers who had successfully raised children. They were doing night babysitting at group homes up in La Crosse, about an hour's round trip north in Wisconsin. I said, look, I'll raise you on your hourly wage. You can wear your pajamas. I don't care. You have to watch all of these Lobos videos from the 1980s. If it turns your stomach, tell me, and I'll go get somebody else. Plus, you have to get to know my little boy.
Yeah.
And, they said, oh, well, we'll take him to Walmart and buy all these things for him to make a Halloween costume. Well, they came back and they were totally frizzy-haired and sweaty. They had no idea what it was like to take a 3-year-old child with autism into the buzzing lights in the Walmart store.
Yeah.
But when they came to Evelyn's workshop, because they had spent a couple of weeks with Ruffin, they had very challenging questions. How do we possibly teach him this? Did you know he behaves like that? Do you know that you can't go into a store with him? I can't imagine him getting a haircut. They had great questions, and Evelyn had great answers.
Yeah.
And she made all of us, parents, Ruffin's father and me, we had to sit in the chair and learn how to do discrete trial training. Yeah. And then Ruffin's early childhood special education teacher was there, and his case manager was there, and we had a video camera. Evelyn allowed us to videotape 12 hours so that we could go back and watch it. Mm-hmm. When we realized we were receiving too much information, we might need to review it. And she wrote us a discrete trial training notebook that would begin to take Ruffin's echolalia, because he was able to echo a word. He didn't have the faintest idea what it meant. But to be able to attach receptive language understanding to his ability to echo. And she would teach, she wrote out specific curriculum for us, and then we would videotape and send those videotapes back to California so that she and Dr. Doreen could see if we were learning how to teach him to learn, if our techniques were clean enough, clear enough. And that's the way we carried out 28 months of intensive early behavioral intervention in my home, and in part in the schools as we went along.
And when you say intensive, because we just talked about this for jargon, what does intensive mean to you? What was it like during that time? What did that mean?
At the beginning, it was 40 hours a week, or as many hours as we could have access to Ruffin, given the fact that he was also in a 35-hour-a-week early childhood special education classroom, where he was with variously disabled boys, all of them, and a couple of teachers. So that was useful time for us. Ruffin was out of our hair. We could plan for him so that the moment he came in the door, we could do the things that we had in mind to do with him. Yeah. So he was in a structured environment for quite a lot of time. And we started with 40 hours a week because I realized from reading the research, the original research papers, that 10 hours a week was not going to get us anywhere.
Yes.
And so we started at 40 hours a week. And of course, over the 28 months, we were winding up tapering down in the discrete trial training and increasing the greater exposure of him to typically developing children in various play groups, in small preschool, private preschools, etc. So that by the time we got to the beginning of the second semester of his kindergarten year. He was in a kindergarten class, very small, of about 10 kids, who would move from kindergarten to first grade together as a group with the same teacher. It was an ideal situation in the private school. And so he was able to get to know just a few people who were typically developing, and that was tremendously helpful.
Yeah. I'm curious because nowadays, people are assigned a team. They don't have to go hire people. The insurance pays for it. There's other things. Let's be fair, that dealing with the insurance company is not fun. But it's hard now. I can't imagine when you were having to create it from the ground up, and I'm glad that you had Dr. Doreen, and I'm glad that you have had Evelyn Kung, but then Evelyn would come back to Los Angeles and you would be driving the bus a lot on your own. What was the thing that motivated you to keep doing it, Mary Jane?
Well, I had read Catherine Maurice's book, and I thought if she could do it in New York City, I could do it in Iowa City. I could do it here in Iowa.
Okay.
And, Evelyn returned probably about every 3 months. So she would come back and say, okay, looks like he's mastered this or that. She saw it on videotape that was in advance. And she'd say, here's your new assignment. So we were not anxious about that. The other thing that I did, and I know Doreen talked about this probably yesterday on yesterday's program that I watched, we had independent assessments ongoing all the way through the 28 months, probably 6 over that period.
Wow.
Between 2 different tertiary care centers, the University of Iowa and Gunderson Clinics in La Crosse, Wisconsin. And part of what I was trying to do was to say to these diagnostic groups, look, don't tell the parents they need to go home and take care of each other and love the child. There is more that can be done. Will you please write a prescription that looks like the one that Catherine Maurice got for her children? I want one.
Yeah.
And that enabled some minimal insurance coverage with Prudential.
Okay.
One of the things we had to do during these 28 months, though, is I had to have a lawyer who handled the special education end of things. I had to have a lawyer who would go after Prudential insurance.
Yeah.
And I had to have a lawyer that would defend me against allegations of child abuse.
Oh,
and I was a lawyer.
Yeah.
But I needed 3 lawyers to do this.
Well, it's no small thing what you did. I'm curious as to what point, like how far, like was it 8 minutes after Evelyn got there, or did it take a couple of weeks before you went, this is working? When did you go, this is it, this is what's working, we're going to make sure we go all in?
I think in the Recovered documentary, there is a sequence where you can watch Evelyn begin to establish SD control with Ruffin. And he's screaming bloody murder at the beginning because he doesn't want to sit in the chair and pay attention to anything. He would rather have a plastic sunflower that he got at the hardware store and break all the blades off of it. That was interesting. Yeah. But it was not what we needed him to be doing all the time. Evelyn was able to succeed in getting him to sit in a chair, to give her some attention and eye contact, and you can actually watch her establish that. And then she taught us how to do that too. And then she said, I think the first things we need to teach him are this, this, and this, and please use exactly this procedure to do it. So Ruffin went from, in the book I say exactly how many words I thought he understood. And after the first month of intensive ABA, his vocabulary had grown from a couple of dozen words or labels to 300. I was pretty sure it was going to work when I saw that. And also by mid-December, he was able to say to me spontaneously, I love you.
It's worth everything, right? I want to mention that the DVD Recovered, I believe you can still order it on Amazon, but you can watch it on Autism Live's YouTube channel. If you put in Recovered Journeys Through the Autism Spectrum and Back, it's a film by Dr. Doreen Grant-Pichet that she did with Michelle Jaquis, I believe is how you say that. And it's about an hour long, and it follows 4 families, the parent and the child, and you and Ruffin are one of the 4. And I have to say that when I made my journey and came along, it was right, Recovered was about to be out or just out, and I know I watched and was so inspired that I looked at that and said, well, if these 4 women can do this, then I'm going to find the way. I didn't say then surely I can, but I was like, I'm going to find the way. I'm going to raise myself up to be like these 4 women, and then I try to pay that forward whenever I can. So just know that you turned around and inspired a whole next generation of us. I would love to, because I think Dragonfly Toad Moon, it's a lovely book. In fact, I am one of the people on the back of the book saying how deeply this book affected my heart, because it's just, I say, delectable. But there's one poem in particular that I think really encapsulates a lot of what your experience was with Ruffin. I don't know whether you want me to read it, or we would love it if you would read it on page 9. Sticks and Strings.
Yes. Okay.
You do it?
Yes, I'll read it for you.
Yay.
I'd be delighted. Sticks and Strings. One morning, his crib is an open handful of pickup sticks around his fallen mattress. And how many nights he has unwound the metal bolts and nuts and washers and drawn out the several rods that help hold it together. A waist-high web of string meets me this morning, but where is he gone now? Sleeping or walking with the string's end in his fist. I see he has walked from doorknob to cabinet door to doorknob to cabinet door, everyone on the floor. His pattern of walking is woven behind him, so hard and carefully knotted at each knob and handle and drawer pull, there is no advance possible toward him. It is a morning's work to undo this, and a tantrum, and a resistance not to be met with, I hope, too very often. I hope he does not repeat this, as I fear he will repeat this. I do not want to repeat this.
Yeah, it's just beautiful, Mary Jane. And, obviously we're going to get to Ruffin's story now, but he showed a distinct interest in certain things when he was a child, like dismantling the bolts in the crib, but also talk to us about what this string fascination was and what your house would look like.
Well, when I came down from sleeping, there was like this complete web that had been woven so that he could manipulate all of the drawers and doors by pulling on the threads. This was of interest to him, the same way that watching the swings in the park and getting them to swing together or against each other. These were fascinating patterns for him. One of the strong interests, and it was very helpful, I learned that there was someone in Cedar Rapids, which is about 100 miles south of me, at the YMCA was doing assistive technology for young children who are having trouble with language. And one of the first things we did was go down and see if Ruffin could use the mouse on a computer. And we used in addition to the ABA program that Evelyn and Doreen put together, I used a number of discrete trial training program-like activities that were in computer programs. And at that time, it meant buying a Macintosh computer for Ruffin and teaching him to use it. And that movement of the cursor across the screen was a way of his learning that if his eyes followed the cursor and my eyes followed the cursor and we went to the same thing, that we were sharing a joint attention. So the first episodes of pointing and joint attention were done via technology. And I think because of Ruffin's very early introduction to the computer screen, which, you have to be a little wary of it. It's important to sit with that child so that he or she is not perseverating and doing the same thing over and over again within a computer program, but is enjoying that you are watching what they are doing. You see what they see what you point to on the screen. That kind of activity was very helpful and was an adjunct to what we did in the ABA. And the most successful programs that were recommended to me by the assistive technologists really mimicked a lot of the discrete trial techniques. You'd be presented with a problem, you had to make a choice, you got a visual or an auditory reward of a couple of seconds, and if you did not answer or make the correct choice, you didn't get that. So it worked very much like discrete trial training.
Just amazing. I kind of want to jump ahead a little bit because as we were talking about this amazing young man, Ruffin, I think a lot of times the anxiety level starts to raise. I want to take that away from people. Let's talk about where he is now, what his life is like now, who he is now. And he's very busy. Otherwise, he would be here with us. And I want people to know we have invited him to be here. And I hope that someday he will grace us with his presence. But he's a very important and busy man with a full life and other things to do. Tell us a little bit about him.
Okay, well, don't be discouraged. We started at IQ 50. We started with an 18-month language delay. We started with no social skills. Today, Ruffin has a PhD in computer science in robotic cybersecurity. He has delivered dozens of published research papers to conferences in Hamburg and Singapore and all over the world, dozens of places. He did a postdoctoral fellowship of 18 months in Venice, Italy. Now he has returned to the United States after his postdoctoral fellowship, formed his own robotics company, and he works remotely for a company in London called Exore. And what they do is Ruffin writes the software, the autonomous navigation software for the robots which travel through a warehouse at night and raise a large spire of cameras and lidars and lasers to read all the barcodes on all the pallets in the warehouse, so that when the warehouse manager comes in the morning, he has a visualization of where everything in the warehouse is, how many pieces of that there are. This is going to unkeep the supply chain, right? That's causing the inflation that we have. And Ruffin also writes the security software layer so that malefactors don't break in and find out what's in the warehouse or screw everything up. He has to write this software so that the robots, which are amazing, don't run over the feet of the human workers if they happen to be working in the daytime, or don't engage in accidents with the forklift operators.
Amazing.
And he does this remotely. He does this as Dr. Hammock, which is what his lab mates gave him as a nickname when he was at the University of California, San Diego. He wrote his PhD thesis during the pandemic, hung in a hammock overlooking the Torrey Pines golf course in the Pacific Ocean, because he would have a remote battery power, he would connect to the internet, and he would use Dragon Naturally Speaking, which is a voice-to-text software, to be able to write his thesis.
Just amazing. And I want to say too that I have not ever been in the same room with him, but I've been involved with other things, and so I've seen lots of video of him and had discussions with him. He has sent us video for Doreen's last birthday. He sang happy birthday to her from Venice. He's a wonderful, kind gentleman. And that is what everybody who spends any time with him. So remarkable, absolutely remarkable human being. Do you ever just like look at him and go, oh my gosh, how did we get here?
Well, I really, really hoped we would get all the way to sort of Asperger's syndrome. And I think we got beyond it.
Yes.
Ruffin has more social skills than I do, I think.
I hear you.
Okay. And he can be quite charming.
Yes.
And he certainly doesn't have any problem landing any sort of job that he really wants. He can do the elevator speech and say, this is how I can be valuable to you. I want to be a part of what it is you're doing. And I work really well with teams. And certainly he was trained that way as an engineer. So, when I think about him, I think about how many of our science, engineering, technology, and math are STEM kids. Mm-hmm. Are we missing out on their skills when we start them in early childhood special education and let them acquire no speech and mental retardation? That concerns me very much. Yeah. And I wanted to write this book so that parents realize when they get a diagnosis that this is a very dynamic, diagnosis. Things can change remarkably for better or worse, depending on how you intervene at the beginning. And many of the dreams that you had when you realized you were pregnant, in about half the cases, we know that those kinds of optimal outcomes that you dream about are within reach. But it's a very hard road.
Yes.
It's a lot of hard work. Nobody worked harder than Ruffin. He worked with every therapist that he had. And he took advantage of other opportunities that he had along the way. When he first started working, doing his first paid internships at the small engineering school he went to, he entered the workforce at $25 an hour. His contract with Dick Sorey exceeds the salary of the governor of Iowa.
Nice.
By quite a lot.
Well, that's,
the thing I feel is that I'm free, to pass back into the stars without many worries. And I know that was always a concern of many of my clients who are also parents of children with autism. Yeah. How do we plan for our child after we're gone? And I feel tremendously relieved and lucky that I think Ruffin would survive very well.
Yeah. And we should say he has a huge community of friends and colleagues and people. He has a full life. But he is, I know I have heard him speak about how deeply he appreciates you and how much love there is and how you took such good care of him and that he wants to take care of you now. It brings me to my knees. The books are absolutely amazing. I want to say again, Dragonfly, Toad, Moon. that you can get on Amazon, and I promise you get tissues. It will affect you. And then the new book, which is What It Took to Raise My Son with Autism to Be His Own Person, Loose in the Universe. You can get it right now on Amazon. If you get the Kindle version, you can get it for free. But you can also order, I like a book. I like to hold on to a book. You can order that as well. And it's absolutely amazing. In the book, you detail, it's exactly what you say. What it took to raise my son with autism to be his own person, loose in the universe. And you include, we talked about his early years. We talked about the years that he was getting the EIBI, the early intensive behavioral intervention. But there's a period of time, I think a lot of people have questions about the teen years and when you were done. And I really want to encourage people, get the book. And there is something, I don't know, very cathartic is not the right word, but there is something that's freeing about reading the path that somebody else took and knowing what the outcome is, because it gives you snowshoe prints in the snow that you can choose to follow and divert from or not, to help to lead you on your journey. It doesn't mean that it's your journey. It doesn't mean that you have to do or that your outcome is going to be the same, because everyone is different and Ruffin is his own person, right? But there is something, you said that you read a book that helped you to say there is a path and that spurs you on. Absolutely amazing. And also, if you want to see the video that Mary Jane was talking about, you can check out Recovered. Look on the Autism Live YouTube channel. The full thing is available for you to watch for free of charge. It's there.
In the back, there's some resources, and they include your book, which I wish I had at the time. I probably would not have suffered as much as I did.
Likewise, I wish I had your book. That's very sweet.
And there's a reference to some other resources like Doreen's Granpachet's textbook.
Yes.
And you'll find all of the sort of speech and pathology data, Vineline scores, IQ scores, what it's like to go to that sort of thing, and how you need to handle your paperwork so that you can keep track of what's going on, because you're the only one that's going to see all of it.
Yeah, no kidding. So we're running out of time, but I wanted to ask you this is terrible and cruel for me to say, but for people who are just starting out, what advice do you give? Is there an elevator pitch? You talked about Ruffin's elevator pitch. Is there an elevator pitch? Because I know you're still out there advocating and trying to convince people about this is a very real thing that you guys did 30 years ago and that we were able to do 18 years ago. But more and more, we're seeing that slow down. And I know that you're a big advocate of saying, hold up, this, we know what works, we know what can work. So what advice do you have for families who have just gotten the diagnosis?
It's really helpful if one parent can become the case manager and is free to do that. So I stopped working to make money. Okay. Yeah. You need to find $100,000. Oh. That's just it.
Yeah.
I told this to a woman who called me. She was a waitress in the Boot Heel of Missouri. She had a young girl who had just a toddler, just diagnosed. She had a new baby. Her husband had thought that was too much noise in a single wide metal trailer and moved out. Oh. And when I told her she needed $100,000, there was about 30 seconds of silence.
I'm sure.
She looked down and she said, I have 5 of these credit card offers. This is back when, you give everybody a credit card. She said, that'd be 5 credit card offers. She said, I have a mother. I have several aunts. I have a couple of sisters. I'll borrow the money. We'll keep it in the family. And the first time I met that woman was 2 years later when I placed her child into mainstream kindergarten. That woman is gritty. So you must be gritty. The last thing she did was use the last $500 of her credit to hire her bankruptcy lawyer. Now, we can't do that because bankruptcy laws changed, and I can't even advise people to do that because it's so illegal. But you do really need to be gritty. Yeah. And realize that if you spend about 2 years focused on this, it will relieve you of enormous burdens, both financial, emotional, and physical, and worry for the future. So I say, take the little time you need to absorb what has happened. And then there are ways to be busy that will be very, very helpful for you so that you can return to whatever you want to do, and for your child so that he can find, or she can find, her way through the universe.
There you go. That's pretty impactful. I want to thank you for all that you do and all that you are, and encourage people, get both books. If you'll hold up the other one, I'll hold up this one. So this one is Dragonfly Toad Moon. It is the book of poetry. But I think the one that you all, I think this is a good one to have, but the one you all need is What It Took to Raise My Son with Autism, to be his own person loose in the universe. What a gift. There you are with Ruffin. He's also a handsome young man, talented and intelligent, and making his way loose in the universe. Good job, Mary Jane. Good job.
Oh, listen, it's been delightful to be with you. And I want you and Doreen to know, and Evelyn too, to know that whenever I have the chance, I love to drop in and revisit and hear what's happening that's new.
Yeah. You guys should come to the All Ghouls Gala. You should come to the big Halloween fundraiser that Dr. Grant Bichet does. It's in October. It's the Saturday before Halloween. That would be very fun to have you there.
I think this October that Ruffin is going to be in Denmark presenting a new paper.
Well, all right, then you should.
We'll have to find an October that we can come.
That would be fun. That would be really fun to have you here. But it would be great to have you whenever. I just like to invite people when we're doing something really fun and flashy. In any case,
yes.
Please give our love to Ruffin, and thank you for all that you do. And we'll look forward to a time when we have you back again, and that, someday Ruffin's going to find 10 minutes that he can spend with us. Although, I always say, one of the things people say is, well, if there are all these people that got ABA way back when, where are they all? Why? And I'm like, they're living their lives. That's what they're doing. They're too busy to come in and explain to you what happened. That's where they are.
And thank you for all that you do. I love this channel. I think it's just wonderful.
We do what we can. All right. Thank you. Hugs to you. Stay dry.
Hugs to you,
in Iowa.
fangirl.
Take care.
Fangirl to you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. So again, you guys, Dragonfly Toad Moon. You can find that on Amazon. You can find the book, What It Took to Raise My Son with Autism to Be His Own Person Loose in the Universe. You can find that on Amazon. And if you get the Kindle, you can download that for free, which is amazing. The Recovered DVD, I believe, is also available still on Amazon, but you can watch it on our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/autismlive, then search Recovered, and you're probably going to want to put in the subtitle, Journeys Through the Autism Spectrum and Back. But you will find it there, and you are able to watch it and get the tissues. Okay, that's it for us today. I thank you for being with us, and I hope that you will enjoy tomorrow, the show that we have. And until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now. If you found anything helpful in this video, please give us a like. In fact, make sure that you smash that subscribe button on YouTube and give us a like on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Instagram for important updates. And please download our free podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much. See you next time.